All right, so welcome to the deep dive, everybody. We're going to try something a little different today. Sometimes it's good to shake things up. We're going to be diving into a Korean language news analysis video.
Oh, interesting.
It is. It's a unique opportunity, right, to get a non-U.S. perspective on, some of the events that have been happening both here in the U.S. and around the world. I'm curious, to see how other cultures view, what's happening over here.
Yeah, it's always illuminating to see how our news and our events are perceived from outside of our, our own little bubble.
Exactly. So, let's jump right in. This video kicks off with a pretty dramatic story about a Delta Airlines flight coming from Minneapolis that had a bit of a rough landing in Toronto.
Oh.
Yeah, the plane actually flipped when it landed, resulting in a broken wing, and you could imagine, significant damage.
I mean, yeah, that sounds pretty terrifying.
It does. It really does. And it kind of brings to mind, the inherent risks of air travel.
Right. We don't always think about that.
But what's remarkable about this, though, is that there were no fatalities.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Despite the severity of this incident, all 80 passengers and crew members on board survived.
That's incredible. I mean, considering the plane flipped, that's a testament to, engineering and safety protocols.
Absolutely. 18 people were injured, though.
Oh, right.
And 2 of those people had to be airlifted to a trauma center. It makes you think twice about those safety briefings that we often kind of tune out, when they're on a plane.
Absolutely. You're always kind of like, yeah, I've heard it all before.
Right. But, in these situations, it's like, oh, wow, those protocols are there for a reason.
Yeah, they really do save lives.
Exactly. So here's where things get even more interesting. The video highlights that this Delta crash, it's not an isolated incident.
Oh.
There's been a noticeable spike in aviation accidents in the U.S. over the past few weeks. Plane collided with a military helicopter in Washington, D.C. You had a commuter plane that crashed fatally in Atlanta, and then a medical flight went down, also in D.C.
Wow.
It's a lot to happen in such a short span of time.
It does make you wonder if there's, something more going on.
That's exactly what the video seems to suggest. It makes I guess what you'd call a cautious connection to the recent inauguration of President Trump.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Are they directly linking Trump's policies to these accidents?
I wouldn't say it's a direct causal link.
Okay.
But they are encouraging viewers to think about it, in the broader context.
Okay.
So, for example, could there be shifts in policy or, regulatory oversight that maybe have indirectly impacted aviation safety?
I see. So it's more about looking at the bigger picture and seeing if there are any potential connections.
Exactly. Even if it's just to explore potential connections, it's thought-provoking, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It makes you think about, how seemingly unrelated events could be connected in ways we don't always immediately see.
Right.
For example, you mentioned policy shifts, could budget cuts to the FAA, for instance,
Right.
or staffing changes, could those things be playing a role?
It's worth, thinking about those kinds of connections.
Definitely.
Now, speaking of unexpected connections, the video kind of shifts gears here, and it moves on to international relations.
Okay.
Specifically, the ongoing war in Ukraine. And they highlight the recent peace talks between U.S. and Russian diplomats, which, that's not necessarily new news, but the talks were held in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, that's interesting. Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Doesn't that seem a bit strategic to you?
It does. I mean, Saudi Arabia obviously plays a pretty significant role in that region.
Absolutely.
And they've been, increasingly more assertive in their diplomatic efforts. So hosting these talks could really be a signal of their growing influence, don't you think?
It definitely makes you wonder, are they positioning themselves as a kind of like a neutral mediator, right? Trying to, bridge the gap between the U.S. and Russia.
Yeah. Or maybe, also sort of balancing their own relationships with both of those global powers, right?
Right. They have their own interests,
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
So did these talks actually make any progress?
Well, they did agree on 4 key principles.
Oh, okay.
1 is the normalization of embassies in both countries.
Okay.
2 is the formation of a high-level negotiation team to kind of, facilitate further discussions.
Okay.
3, initiating a dialogue on economic and geopolitical matters. And 4, establishing mechanisms for ongoing communication and dialogue. So, on paper, it sounds like a step towards de-escalation.
Right. At least they're talking, right?
Exactly.
But I have a feeling there's more to it.
Well, there is a pretty significant point of contention
Okay.
that's drawn a lot of criticism.
What's that?
The exclusion of Ukraine from the talks.
Right.
President Zelensky, has strongly condemned this decision,
Of course.
saying any peace agreement without Ukraine's, direct involvement is meaningless.
I mean, I understand his frustration. It's their country, their future that's at stake.
Exactly. And I'm sure, European leaders are probably not thrilled about being left out of the conversation either.
Right, they have a big stake in this, too.
Yeah, absolutely. They're geographically closer. They're dealing with the refugee crisis and the economic fallout.
Right, so it raises this, really crucial question. When powerful nations negotiate peace, like who gets a seat at the table?
Right.
And who gets left out in the cold? It's a recurring theme throughout history, isn't it?
It really is. And the video actually delves into that point.
Oh, okay.
Drawing some parallels to historical instances where powerful nations have determined the fate of less powerful ones without their full participation.
Oh, wow. Give me some examples.
Well, they talk about the Berlin Conference of 1884.
Okay.
Where European powers essentially carved up Africa.
Right, amongst themselves.
Yeah. With no regard for the existing cultures and societies.
Right.
And, obviously the consequences of those decisions are still felt today.
Right. A very good example. What else?
They also mentioned the Sykes-Picot Agreement from 1916,
Okay.
where Britain and France secretly divided the Middle East into, spheres of influence, again, with little regard for the people who actually lived there.
Right.
And, that decision, some would argue, contributed to a lot of the instability and conflicts that, that we're still seeing in the region today.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a really good example of, how these agreements made by powerful countries can have these ripple effects for generations.
Absolutely.
100 years later, we're still dealing with the consequences.
Right.
And then, of course, you can't forget the Munich Agreement of 1938, right?
Right.
Where Britain and France attempted to appease Hitler
Right.
by allowing him to annex a portion of Czechoslovakia.
Right.
And that's, widely seen as a failed attempt at appeasement that emboldened Hitler and contributed to the outbreak of World War II.
Right.
So, I mean, are they suggesting that these U.S.-Russia peace talks are doomed to fail?
No, not necessarily. I mean, they're not saying that history is, destined to repeat itself.
Okay.
But they are using these historical parallels to highlight how important it is, to understand the potential consequences of excluding key stakeholders.
Right.
And how important it is to have inclusive negotiations that really address the concerns of all parties involved.
Right. And it's not just about, international agreements, right? It seems like the U.S. isn't exactly a haven of peace and unity, domestically speaking.
That's true. The video covers those Not My President Day protests that took place.
Oh, yeah, those were pretty widespread.
Yeah, all across the country.
Organized by a group called, 50 States, 50 Protests?
Yeah, that's right. And it really demonstrates that significant, opposition to President Trump and his policies.
I mean, they were held in all 50 states.
That's right.
And there were huge turnouts in major cities. I mean, we're talking Washington, D.C., New York, Los Angeles, you name it.
It was definitely a significant show of dissent.
What were the main concerns of the protesters? I mean, was it solely focused on Trump himself, or were there other broader issues at play?
Well, I mean, obviously Trump was, a central figure.
Right.
But the protests, they also reflected these deeper anxieties about, I think, the direction the country's heading in.
Okay.
People were concerned about his policies, on immigration,
Right.
healthcare, climate change, social justice. I mean, the list goes on.
So it sounds like there was just a sense of, disillusionment,
Mm-hmm.
frustration
Yeah.
with the political establishment in general.
Yeah, regardless of party affiliation, it seemed like people were, feeling unheard.
And speaking of controversial figures, the video also shines a spotlight on Elon Musk.
Oh, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
What's he up to?
Well, they talk about his involvement in the Trump administration, specifically this newly created non-governmental agency called DI.
DI? What?
I know. I mean, that name alone is eyebrow-raising, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
The video doesn't really get into the specifics of, what DI's purpose is or what
Right.
they actually do, but they do mention all the controversy surrounding Musk's role in it.
Okay.
From what I've read, he's been overseeing, the firing and downsizing of various government departments
Right.
and agencies.
And that's obviously sparked a lot of accusations.
Yeah, overreach and conflicts of interest.
Right. I mean, it does make you wonder. It kind of blurs the lines between private enterprise and government, right?
Yeah.
And how much influence should, individuals with a lot of wealth and power have,
Right.
especially when those individuals aren't elected officials?
That's a very good point.
I mean, it raises questions about democratic processes, accountability, transparency.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
It is. And it's not just political upheavals that the U.S. is dealing with right now. We've got, very real and immediate threats like this severe winter storm.
Oh, right.
That's gripping much of the country.
Yeah, it's been brutal in some areas. Frigid temperatures, power outages. I heard they've had school closures and just, widespread transportation disruptions.
It's been really bad, especially in Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee's been hit hard.
They've had heavy rainfall that led to just devastating floods.
Oh, no.
14 fatalities, at least. And, widespread damage.
Oh, that's terrible.
It really makes you think. We often get so caught up in these political debates,
right?
Technological advancements, but sometimes it takes a natural disaster to really, remind us of how vulnerable we are.
And that we're not always as prepared as we think we are.
Exactly.
The video seems to connect this storm to a larger pattern of increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events.
Which a lot of people would say, is linked to climate change.
Right.
It definitely underscores the need for greater preparedness.
Yeah, resilience and, more proactive measures to try to mitigate, the impact of these kinds of events.
It's a wake-up call, isn't it?
It is, and it reminds us that these larger systemic issues, they don't just go away.
Right. It seems like there's always something vying for our attention.
It's the nature of our world, right? I mean, everything's so interconnected. Events unfold so rapidly, it's hard to keep up.
It really is, but I think it's crucial to try to stay informed.
Absolutely.
To engage with different perspectives.
Right.
Just try to cultivate a more, I guess you could say, nuanced understanding of all the complex forces that are shaping our world.
Well said.
This news analysis video, I think, has definitely given us a lot to think about so far.
It really has.
And there's more to uncover. Let's take a quick pause here, then we'll dive into some of the other stories that are covered in this video.
It's interesting, how amidst all of these major global events, the video also highlights some smaller stories.
Right.
Kind of gives you a glimpse into this tapestry of human experience that's happening, all around us.
Yeah, it's like zooming in from that big picture,
right,
to the individual threads that make up the fabric of our world. What kind of stories caught your eye?
Well, there is this pretty bizarre crime story out of Michigan.
Oh.
Yeah, a man allegedly drove 700 miles all the way to Pennsylvania.
Wow.
To set fire to the house of a man who had just spoken on the phone with his ex-girlfriend.
Oh my gosh, that's a serious case of jealousy. Taken to the extreme. What happened? I mean, was anyone hurt?
Thankfully, the 6 people that were inside the house, they all escaped.
Okay.
But 2 pet dogs died in the fire.
Oh, that's so sad. That's really awful.
It is. It's a reminder that these seemingly minor interactions, they can escalate into violence.
Yeah.
And the consequences can be devastating.
It's a chilling thought. Really, I mean, it makes you realize how important it is to take threats seriously.
Yeah.
Especially, in those situations involving emotions like jealousy and possessiveness.
Right. And it also, I think it points to the need for more awareness and for better support systems to help people, cope with these intense emotions.
Right. In healthy ways.
Exactly.
Now, shifting gears to a completely different part of the world, the video also touches on the conflict between Israel and Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
Any new developments there?
Well, there is a glimmer of hope. Maybe.
Okay.
Hamas has agreed to release 6 hostages.
Oh, wow.
And the bodies of 4 deceased hostages.
Okay.
In exchange for humanitarian aid from Israel to the Gaza Strip. So it's a small step, but it does show that dialogue and negotiation can yield some progress, even in the most challenging circumstances.
Right.
It's a reminder that, even in the midst of conflict, there's that human element that yearns for peace.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it also really highlights the role of humanitarian aid in these situations. Providing those basic necessities, it not only alleviates suffering, but it can also foster trust.
Right.
And maybe create an environment, for future dialogue.
Right. So from conflict zones to matters of faith, the video also gives an update on the health of Pope Francis.
Oh, right.
He's 88 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he was hospitalized in Rome for bronchopneumonia.
Yeah. It's a reminder, that even these world leaders, they might seem larger than life, but they are, they're human.
Right.
And subject to, the same vulnerabilities as everyone else.
Yeah, age and illness, it makes you think about the demands of that kind of role,
Absolutely. I mean, such a high-profile, influential position.
Right.
It takes its toll,
Yeah.
Physically and mentally. And, it also kind of raises questions about succession planning.
Oh, that's interesting.
Especially in institutions with such a long history and global influence like the Catholic Church. I mean, transitions are inevitable, right?
Right.
And making sure that there's a smooth and stable handover, it's really essential.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, switching gears to the world of technology, it seems South Korea is taking a stand against a Chinese AI app called DeepSeek.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've banned downloads of the app over data privacy concerns.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're worried about data sharing with ByteDance.
Oh, the parent company of TikTok.
Exactly. And I think it really reflects these growing global anxieties about, data privacy and security.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to, apps developed by companies in countries with different data protection laws.
Right, right. And, it's interesting because here in the U.S., TikTok has also been facing similar scrutiny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Over data security and, that potential influence from the Chinese government.
Right. It's a complex issue with far-reaching implications. I mean, as technology continues to advance and, our lives become more and more intertwined with the digital world, it's getting more challenging.
Absolutely.
To strike that balance between innovation and protecting our data.
Yeah, it's like this constant, trade-off
Right.
between convenience and privacy.
Exactly. We want to embrace these new technologies, but we also have to be aware of the potential downsides.
Exactly.
And it raises these questions about, the role of governments
Right.
in regulating the tech industry.
I mean, how do you foster innovation
Right.
while also ensuring that people's data is protected? It's a tough balancing act.
Speaking of balancing acts, the video shares a cautionary tale about the dangers of getting a little too close to wildlife. For that, a perfect social media shot.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah, a 55-year-old Canadian woman lost both hands in a shark attack
Oh, my God.
while she was trying to take a picture with a shark near a beach.
Oh, no, that's just awful.
It is, and it's a stark reminder that wild animals are unpredictable
Yeah,
and should be treated with, respect and caution.
right. I mean, no selfie is worth risking your life or your limbs.
Exactly, and I think it speaks to this, this obsession we have with documenting every moment for social media.
Yeah, and the lengths people will go to get that perfect shot.
Right, but it also highlights the importance of, being a responsible tourist
Absolutely.
and understanding the potential risks involved when you're interacting with wildlife in their natural habitats.
Yeah, we're visitors in their world.
Right.
And we need to be mindful of that.
Exactly. Our actions have consequences.
Yeah.
So speaking of consequences, the video also touches on the U.S. stock market's reaction to all of these events.
Oh, interesting. So were investors, spooked by the plane crashes, the protests, the winter storms? What happened?
Surprisingly, the market remained pretty stable.
Really?
Yeah, Dow Jones was down just slightly, S&P 500 was up slightly, and NASDAQ was down slightly.
Okay, so no major panic.
No major panic selling or buying sprees. It seemed like investors were kind of taking this wait-and-see approach. Maybe they're just holding their breath, to see how things will play out.
Makes sense, especially with all the uncertainty surrounding, President Trump's policies and trade and everything.
Right, and, that potential for global inflation.
Right, right.
Now, in the midst of all this kind of serious news, the video throws in a bit of a lighter story.
Oh, okay, what's that?
Something about a new drink from Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola?
Yeah, they're jumping on the healthy soda bandwagon with a new product called Simply Pop.
Simply Pop, huh?
Yeah, it's a probiotic-infused carbonated beverage.
Probiotics and soda, that's an interesting combination.
Right, I know. But it's designed to compete with popular brands like Olipop and Poppy.
Oh, okay. So are people actually buying this healthier soda?
Well, it seems like it.
Really?
The video mentions that Olipop and Poppy have been gaining a lot of popularity, even though they're more expensive.
Interesting.
So it seems like consumers are willing to pay a premium for drinks that offer both flavor and potential health benefits.
Yeah, it's interesting how consumer preferences are shifting.
Right.
It seems like people are moving more towards products that are both indulgent but also healthy.
It's like having your cake and eating it too.
Right, exactly, but with a probiotic twist.
Exactly. Speaking of trends, the video also mentions Tesla's expansion into India.
Oh, Tesla in India, that's big news.
Yeah, they opened showrooms in New Delhi and Mumbai.
Okay.
So clearly, they're serious about tapping into this rapidly growing market.
Right. And I mean, India has a huge population.
Right.
And, that demand for electric vehicles is just going to continue to rise.
But India is an interesting case study, when it comes to EVs.
Yeah.
On one hand, you've got this government that's really pushing for cleaner transportation.
Right.
And, a lot of people who could benefit from more affordable EVs. But on the other hand, there are these infrastructure challenges and a relatively low per capita income that could hinder, widespread adoption.
Right. So, I mean, how do you bridge that gap?
Well, I guess that's the question, isn't it? Tesla's success in India is going to depend on, whether they can adapt their products
Right.
and their pricing strategies to the specific needs of the Indian market.
Yeah. So are they planning to, offer more affordable models?
It seems like it.
Okay.
The video mentions that they're planning to release an electric vehicle that's more affordable later this year.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be around $20,000.
Wow. That could be a game changer.
Right.
Especially in markets like India where price is such a major factor.
It'll be interesting to see what happens if Tesla can crack the code in India. It could really, pave the way for massive growth in the global EV market.
It's definitely a development worth watching. This whole intersection of technology and economics and environmental concerns it's creating such a dynamic landscape in the automotive industry.
It really is. Now, not all companies are experiencing growth and expansion. The video also talks about Southwest Airlines.
Oh, Southwest.
Yeah. They're actually planning to lay off a significant portion of their workforce.
Oh, wow. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I think it's around 15% of their workforce.
15%. That's a lot of people.
It is. It's like 1,750 employees.
Wow. And what led to this?
Well, the video cites, the need for cost reduction measures.
Okay.
To improve their financial outlook. And they're projecting to save $300 million by 2026 through these layoffs. So it's a reminder that even seemingly, stable industries can be vulnerable to economic pressures and, and changing market dynamics.
It's a tough job market out there.
It is. And it makes you wonder what it means, for the future of air travel.
Right.
And, and for jobs in general. I mean, are we seeing a shift in consumer behavior?
Well, I think there are, multiple factors at play.
Okay.
You've got the rise cost of fuel,
Right.
increased competition from, all these budget airlines.
Right.
And then you've still got the lingering effects of the pandemic. So it's definitely created some challenges for the industry.
Yeah, it's a reminder that, companies have to be adaptable.
Right.
And they have to innovate to survive in this, this rapidly changing world. Speaking of adapting, the video also mentions that Intel, the tech giant, is facing its own set of challenges.
Oh, Intel.
Yeah, their stock price surged over 10% today.
Wow.
Amidst all these rumors of potential acquisitions.
Interesting.
Yeah, it seems like Broadcom is interested in acquiring Intel's chip design team.
Okay.
And then TSMC is eyeing their manufacturing facilities. It is a bit surprising, to see a company like Intel that was once, a dominant force in tech,
Right.
additionally being broken up and sold off. So what's driving this?
Well, I think Intel has been facing this increasing competition from companies like, TSMC and Samsung
Right.
in that chip manufacturing space.
Right.
And they've also been struggling to keep pace with the rapid innovation that's happening in that sector.
Right. So it's a classic example, of how even these really successful companies, if they fail to adapt
Right.
and innovate, they can falter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes you wonder what what the future holds for Intel and for, the tech landscape as a whole. I mean, are we going to see more consolidation?
It's possible.
More acquisitions as the industry keeps evolving.
Yeah, I mean, the tech industry is known for being, really fast-paced,
Right.
disruptive. So companies that can't keep up, they're often left with difficult choices.
Right.
And, mergers and acquisitions can be a way to, to gain access to new technologies or talent or even market share.
Yeah.
And it can potentially benefit both the company acquiring and the company being acquired.
Right.
But then, of course, these consolidations also raise concerns about competition, and the potential for monopolies.
Right. So it's another complex issue with far-reaching implications, for consumers.
Absolutely.
And for the overall health of the industry. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Everything from the tragic to the hopeful, the serious to the lighthearted. It really is, I guess, a reflection of the diversity and the complexity of the world we live in.
Right. Every day brings something new.
It really does. And this Korean news analysis, I think, has really given us a fresh perspective on these events.
It has.
It's encouraged us to think a little more critically.
Absolutely.
And to consider these, alternative viewpoints.
Yeah, and to remember that there's always more than one way to see things.
Exactly. Well, before we wrap up our deep dive, let's take a short break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll delve into a final thought-provoking question.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
That'll leave you pondering the implications of everything we've discussed today.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. All right, so we're back. And, this Korean language news analysis has really taken us on a whirlwind tour of current events.
It really has. We've covered everything from, plane crashes to political protests, international tensions, shark attacks. It's been a lot to process.
It has. But, what I find really fascinating is how this non-U.S. perspective it encourages us to kind of re-examine these events through a different lens.
It challenges our assumptions.
Yeah.
And it reveals these nuances that, we might have missed otherwise.
Yeah, it's like we've been wearing these U.S.-centric glasses for so long that we kind of forget that, there are other ways of seeing the world.
Absolutely. And, I think by engaging with diverse viewpoints, we develop a richer understanding, a more comprehensive understanding of global events.
Right.
And how interconnected everything really is.
So as we wrap up this unique deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
We talked about the U.S.-Russia peace talks on Ukraine. And the historical parallels that the video drew to past agreements. So given those comparisons, what implications do you think the outcome of these talks could have on the future of international relations? And, that balance of power between nations?
That's a really important question. And I think the video's exploration of those past agreements, like the Berlin Conference,
right.
The Sykes-Picot Agreement, they serve as a reminder of what can happen
right.
when powerful nations negotiate,
right.
Without the full participation of those most affected by the decisions.
Right. It makes you wonder, are we just setting the stage for future conflicts by excluding key players from the negotiating table?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely raises concerns about, are we repeating the mistakes of the past?
Right, exactly.
And it highlights the importance of, of inclusivity, transparency. In international diplomacy, I mean, peace agreements, they're often presented as this path to stability.
Right.
But they can actually, make things worse if they're not carefully crafted,
right.
implemented with the input of all stakeholders.
It's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
Exactly.
It might look good at first, but without that, that solid base, it's eventually gonna crumble.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that the decisions that are being made today, they have long-term consequences.
Absolutely.
For global stability and security.
So we need to think not just about the immediate outcomes, but also about the potential long-term consequences.
Absolutely. Think about those ripple effects.
This deep dive has given us a lot to ponder. We've explored all these events through this this unique cultural lens, and uncovered some unexpected connections and challenged our own our own perspectives along the way.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey. And I think it's a reminder that it's always important to be, to be seeking out diverse viewpoints.
Right.
To be asking critical questions and to, and to approach the world with curiosity and an open mind.
Well said. Well, thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll be back soon with another exploration of current events.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, stay curious, everybody.